Well, I haven't shown you how to disassemble the finder assembly in order to clean it yet, so we'll deal with that now. I'll start by removing the prism. There are two small black screws here. Hold that clamp in place on the finder assembly. One here holds this mask in place. That mask is easily bent, so be careful with it. Alright, so we've got a bracket here which holds the prism down. The prism is also held down with tape around the edges. That's just to keep dust out, really. The bracket almost certainly does not want to separate from the prism. If it does, there's a good danger that it'll strip some silvering off the prism as it goes. Now this prism is not in good order, as I will show you. You see that bracket's lifted off there now, and the other side. We may get away scot-free, but probably not. Let's pull the tape off. I'll show you the state of this prism. It's not pretty, particularly with the first Retina Reflex model, this one, the 025. The silvering on the prism tends to fail. You can lift that off now, and if you look at that prism and you look down into it, you can probably see, two parallel lines running through it. Well, that's where the silvering's gone. They show us two dark stripes in the finder. Otherwise, this prism's not in bad order. If we look in from the side here, this is a bit tricky to do. You might see a dark patch about here. The other side is good. That's typically where this pad has stripped the silvering off it, or caused the silvering to fail. The exact nature of that failure, I don't know. Suffice it to say, it's no good, and typically you want to find a new prism if you can. You can get new Retina Reflex prisms, new old stock, on eBay. There's a bloke in Germany who sells them routinely. I've bought a lot from him in the past. I'm not buying any more. I'm no longer in this trade. This is simply a hobby. So there's our prism. We'll put that to one side. If you're going to reuse it, be nice and careful with it. And here we have the rest of the finder assembly. Still got a bit of tape stuck on there, I see. Okay, so what have we got here? Well, here we have a spring clips that hold this condenser lens in place. If I strip that piece of tape off there, we can see the ends of those spring clips. Now there'll be anywhere between 1 and 3 spring clips in place, depending on the particular finder you happen to have at the time. And I'm just pushing the ends of those springs up out of the way. You can see them there coming up. I can hook my tweezers under it and pop those out. Here I've got 3. Don't be surprised if you got a different number, that's quite normal. Okay, so the condenser lens here at the top, let's tip that out. Now that's symmetrical. The top and bottom surface are the same shape. Underneath that we have this spacer. This spacer is not symmetrical. The end pieces here are taller relative to the sides on the bottom than they are on the top because of the different curvatures of these condenser lenses. Then we have this condenser lens, which is flat on the bottom surface, curved convex on the top. Now we're down to the screen assembly itself, and this is two pieces. We have a ground glass screen. The ground glass surface is down, it faces towards the lens. The clear surface of the glass is facing up. This I need to remove the screws. There are 6 screws, 1 on each end, 2 on front, 2 on the back, and they locate things in here. Let's get that mask out first. There's a loose mask in here that sits between that condenser lens and the ground glass. The ground glass may fall out, but probably not. Okay. See if I can loosen these screws. They are small. They're also locked in place with a touch of lacquer, and if you can get them loose without putting anything on there in the way of a solvent, I suggest that you do, because if you put acetone on there at this stage, there's a great likelihood the acetone will reach this screen at the bottom. That's plastic, and it won't like acetone, and you won't like the result. So I normally unscrew these without putting any solvent on them. And I will be removing these screws completely, which is troublesome, but it serves a good purpose. Okay, so this plastic surface we see here at the bottom is quite delicate. And I'm taking 2 fresh, clean cotton buds here, and I'm just going to press down on that opposite corners and see if I can get that lens assembly to drop. Yes, dropped. Don't press it in with your finger, you'll leave a mark. It probably won't come off. Okay, so let's look at our screen assembly here. At the bottom, facing the camera lens, we have the clear plastic sheet with our split image prism on it. The split image prism goes up into the finder. It goes up against that ground glass surface. Do not have the prism facing down towards the lens. You will not get a good result. So this is quite a clean example. It's not uncommon for these to be completely covered on the surface between the ground glass and the plastic with tiny mildew spots. It looks like it's got the measles. This is quite a clean example. I suggest that you do not rub at this with cotton buds or soft cotton cloths or anything at all, because that plastic surface is very soft and it scratches very, very easily. So be very careful with that. We can clean that later. The ground glass, this is just glass. It's thin. The ground glass surface there is quite a fine finish. As long as you don't scratch it, that'll be happy. You can clean this with glass cleaner and a soft cotton cloth. No problem at all. You won't get in any trouble. Don't want to scratch that surface because it'll leave a mark you'll see in the finder. That brings us back to the housing. As I say, I'm going to remove these 6 screws, and the reason I remove them is that if you don't remove them, you will end up with a whole pile of tiny threads of cotton from the cotton bud, the Q-tips, when you start cleaning this. They'll just get tangled around these tiny screws and you will go crazy trying to remove the threads of cotton with your tweezers. So before cleaning this part, I remove all of these 6 little screws, and you can see how tiny they are. They're not very big. Be very careful not to lose them. You won't find another one that looks like them except in another finder assembly. Another good reason for removing them completely is that once they're broken loose, they may fall out of their own accord if they're only just threaded in. And once they hit the carpet, they're gone for good. Okay, so here we have the housing. We can strip that tape off there. The tape, largely the tape is there to keep dust out of the finder assembly, because if you don't have it there, any little particle of dust that can get in will get in, and it'll show up like great big boulders on your focus screen. Okay, so that's all our finder disassembled. We can move on to the job of cleaning things up. I'm going to use acetone to remove all these traces of adhesive where the tape's been on this frame. The first thing I'm going to do is take my plastic screen, the one with the split image finder on it, and put that carefully to one side, well out of any possible splash zone. Because acetone, one tiny drop of acetone reaching that screen will ruin it, like most other plastic pieces. So this tape residue is pretty sticky, but it will go away. I usually apply a fair bit of acetone on there. Let it work for a few seconds and then start wiping. This stuff is more stubborn than most. Well, I think you get the picture. This stuff is certainly going away, just not particularly quickly. I'll just carry on until I have this finder assembly here completely free of that residue. So I'm doing all the top surface and then the areas where the tape covers it around here. Alright, I've got that cleaned to my satisfaction. It's worth getting all that sticky rubbish off. Mostly just because it looks messy. You don't want it looking messy. This part you can clean, so you should clean. The prism. If you're reusing a prism, don't start trying to get the adhesive off the side of the prism, because I know of nothing that will move that stuff that isn't equally enthusiastic about removing the paint and the silver that lies below it. So leave that sticky stuff on the prism. You can clean this face. You can do that carefully, but not the sides and not the front. You will end up losing silver. Now is as good a time as any to put the 6 screws back in place. Now, these are always a hassle to deal with. That unfortunately is just life. So take your time. Only have 1 screw at a time that you're dealing with. And with a bit of luck, the screws will start smoothly. And you only want them just started, really. You don't want them protruding through on the inside to any great extent, because they will foul the plastic screen and stop you from being able to get the screen and things settled in there. So these screws, just one at a time until you've got the 6 in place. And one of the advantages of doing it now, which is basically as soon as it's practical to put the screws back in place, is that you'll know where they are. And while they're loose, even if you've got them carefully placed in a container, there's every likelihood that you'll knock the container over, or your magnetic screwdriver that you didn't know was magnetised will pick the screw up and flick it into the dark recesses in the corner of the room. And these things are like a speck of dust. You'll never see them again. It certainly would be handy to have steady hands to do this job. Mine are not as steady as they used to be, and I think that's just a side effect of some medication I'm on. Right, I have my 6 screws back in place, making sure they're not sticking out too far. These ones probably protrude a little bit further than I'd like. I'll back them out part of a turn, quarter of a turn, no more than that. This metal is very, very thin. But I can put that to one side now. We're done with that. That's clean. We don't need to touch that again at the moment. And next task is to clean these 3 components. These are all glass. They can be cleaned with a soft cotton handkerchief and normal domestic glass cleaner, and you'll get a very good result. You don't have to do anything fancy. Okay, so my 3 pieces of glass. Just see something sitting on that edge there. It looks to me like a little piece of adhesive. I'll shift that with some acetone now before I start cleaning that glass. So I don't want to move a little piece of adhesive around on the glass surfaces with my cleaning, because it will be very frustrating. You can guarantee that you'll end up smearing stuff. And so here I've got a cotton handkerchief, fresh in the laundry, nice worn out one. You can see it's worn out. It's good, nice and soft. So, a bit of domestic glass cleaner, nothing exciting. And clean these 3 pieces of glass. Now these are quite clean already. This is a clean example of one of the finders. Inspect them closely to make sure you're leaving no fingerprints on them. Put them carefully to one side on a nice freshly cleaned piece of tissue, and let's do the next one. The 2 condenser lenses here are pretty non-controversial, and it's just basically glass. They look like they're coated when you look at the colour of them, but they probably weren't coated. That layer is something that will develop naturally with a lot of glasses, not all glasses, over time. And it is like an optical coating. It's to do with the, presumably, oxidation of the glass itself. Now here's our ground glass. Obviously it's got ground on one surface and it's shiny glass on the other surface, the top surface. And I'm just making sure that I've got no smears or anything on there, and that there's no little pinpricks of mildew. It's very, very common to have mildew on this ground glass surface between that and the plastic element. So I can put that to one side. Our prism, I'm not reusing this prism, I'm going to use another one. But if I was reusing this prism, I would be carefully cleaning the bottom surface and carefully cleaning the back here. That's where the eyepiece goes, and putting that carefully to one side. And all that leaves is our plastic element here. Now looking at that, I can see that that surface, and you won't be able to see, but I can see that that surface, this is the surface with the prism on it, the surface that goes against the ground glass, is covered in tiny speckle marks. Now they will be mildew marks, and this needs to be cleaned carefully. And I'm going to do that in an ultrasonic cleaner. So I'll pop that to one side and find my gear. This is what I'll use to hold it. It's just a bulldog clip. I'm sure it's got half a dozen other different names. It's been mutilated so that the spring is nowhere near as springy as it once was. As you can see, the jaws hardly meet. But it's ideal for this job. So what I want to do is position this in the jaws like so. The prism is facing downwards here towards me so that I can clean it easily. And this I'm going to take out to the ultrasonic cleaner. I'll make sure that the tank is very, very clean before I start. I will just have hot water or warm water in the tank and a few drops of domestic dish soap. And basically this just sits in the ultrasonic cleaner, just sits in the top of the basket of the ultrasonic cleaner, so there's nothing physically touching the surface. A minute in the warm water with detergent is all it needs. I pull this out, I rinse it under the hot tap. Then I take the blower, my rocket blower, and a hairdryer, and all at the same time I blow away any water droplets that may be sitting on the surface, and I'm drying it with the hairdryer at the same time until I have a nice clean sparkly piece of plastic with no mildew marks on it. Now it's important to use the rocket blower and the hairdryer at the same time, because any droplets that are sitting on the surface, if you just bake them dry with your hairdryer, they'll leave little tiny rings, coffee rings, on the glass, and you'll have to start the process all over again to clean it and get it done. I'll be back when I have this clean. Well, I have my component with the split image all back, cleaned and ready for reassembly. And I have a prism. It's not perfect, but it's better than what I had. So this is the one I'm using. This was one I bought on eBay. It's the last of a long line, and it'll do nicely. It's much better than that one. So we'll get into the reassembly process next. Alright, the first thing to do here is to put our plastic screen in place. Now this must go in the prism side up. Now I'm checking this to see which way in it goes. It's best if you don't drop it. You can probably see small marks on the end where the screws for adjusting it went in. I can see those on that end. It tells me it went in that way. That should just fall in flat. There shouldn't be any problems at all. The screws are backed out, so the screws aren't obstructing it from falling in there. I'm just getting a toothpick now to help me position things and make sure things are down where they should be. That all looks good. Now, almost inevitably, some speck of dust will have managed to fall in there while I've been putting that in. So I'm just going to hold that down very carefully with a toothpick right in the corner where it won't show, and just use my blower to make sure there's no dust in there at all. Next we want our ground glass screen. Again, it's helpful if you don't drop it on the floor. This must go ground side down, the dull side down. That will not drop straight in because it's a neat fit and it'll almost clips into place. I'm pressing that down into place very gently with the tip of a toothpick, and I'll inspect it to make sure I've got nothing stuck between the ground glass and the plastic screen. Now I can see a speck, so I'm going to take that out and do it again. There's a tiny speck visible in here, and I bet you won't be able to see it. I'll see if I can get a piece of paper behind there to light it up. There's a tiny speck just visible there in the upper part of the screen. That's between those surfaces. So I've got to get that out and start again. Now this is part of the process of doing this job, is that you often need to do it multiple times to get things to go correctly. That's dropped in. I'm checking that now to see if that speck is sitting on that surface, and it's not. And I can see it on my ground glass right there. It's gone now. And I'll check that again. I can see something else in there now. I can see a dust speck sitting on that plastic. I'll inspect my ground glass again. I'm seeing nothing. Hold it up to the light. Okay, all clear. Everything's looking good. That's great. Next piece. This mask. Drop that in. Again, I'm going to check against the light to make sure I haven't dislodged anything and dropped a piece of dust in there with it. It's all looking good. Next piece, this condenser lens. Drop that into place. Again, I'm holding it up to the light. It's all looking good. Next, we have this piece. This is the spacer that goes between the condenser lenses. Now the tall side, this isn't symmetrical. The tall side goes down. Alright, again I'm going to hold that up to the light. I need to make sure that I haven't moved or dropped in any speck of dust when I was doing that. It's all looking good. Next, other condenser lens. Blow off the surfaces of that. And this has to sit on top of that spacer. And that one fell right into place. Commonly you end up with one dropping in and displacing the piece and causing you grief, and you've got to pull it out and start again. That went well. Now the retaining springs. We've got 3 of these. That one does not want to drop into place. Well, that one I think has dropped off the side of the condenser lens, so it's tucked down under it. That's better. That's clipped down into place. And it's two mates. There are three used here. That one went in without a murmur. The third. Make sure that's tucked down into place. Now hold it up against the light again, blow off any dust. I don't see any inclusions. That's great. That's just what we want. Alright, at this stage we need to mount the prism. Now you can put this directly onto your camera body. I've got a spare body here that I'd worked on previously, and I'll use this, I think, as a stand to hold this in place. So I take my freshly cleaned prism and sit it in place. It should drop down into that recess and sit there just comfortably. Now we've got to put the tape around the prism to seal it to that base. And what I do is I pre-prepare my strips of tape, because this is just a black duct tape type material. It's a reinforced one. It doesn't stretch. Now that's important, because it doesn't stretch out. It doesn't want to drop back. If you use electrical tape, that stuff stretches like buggery. And one of the things about it stretching is that it'll want to relax at some stage. And if it relaxes, it'll be pulling away from the glass and you'll no longer have a seal there anymore. I'm just looking at that. That's no good. I haven't got that sitting high enough. Oh, the prism's moved on me, that's why. That's good. I've got that prism sealed along the front edge there. I can see that prism's not sitting right. It's dropped out of its spot. That tape's pulling it back. This tape is very, very sticky. I think you heard that prism drop into position there. That's better. I want to get my two pieces of tape along that edge now, and if I get that in place, then I can put the clamp in place. Now I need to cut the excess off this tape here. just fold that down. I hope I'm still in the picture. Yeah, just. I can trim that excess tape off shortly. If this looks like an awkward job, that's because it is. Now I'm just looking into the prism from the back to see what it looks like. It's a bit speckly, it's not a wonderful prism. It's better than what I had, but it's not great. I need to get this bracket in place to hold that prism down to the housing. Now this will have two screws either side. The larger screws hold this whole bracket down to the body, and the smaller screw just holds the assembly together. Your best place to put the larger screws in first and get that held down firmly. Then you can put the smaller screws in place on that to hold the prism down.